How's that? All right, my audio is working. Ignore everything. Well, okay, I'm just going to restart. Here we go. Hello, and once again, welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy podcast. My name is Jed, and we are in the Meno. If you have been watching along with the whole series, congratulations, we're at the end of the Meno. So, my chair is completely cooked, so hopefully next stream I'll have a new chair. We're at the end of the Meno, and as we are learning in our dream analysis series, the last one I think was dream analysis 5, we saw the significance of the opening or introduction to a dream. Now, because it's just a single art, the art of the dialectic, or what we're calling philodianoia, the love of understanding, that's the game that we're here to play, that's the game that we're playing here, then everything that we are learning in dream analysis we can equally apply to philosophical midwifery and philosophy. So 3 parts. Philosophy is the dialectic applied to truth. Midwifery, philosophical midwifery, is the dialectic applied to uncovering and removing what's false, unsuspected false beliefs about self and reality we're carrying within our soul that causes the problems that we face individually as a species. And 3 on that list is dream analysis. The art of the dialectic applied to understanding our dreams, so we can get all the tasty, juicy providence or benefit from our dreams. Yay, 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 yay. And of course, that benefit would be either directly or indirectly about those other 2 things. Your quest to know and understand and master the self in philosophy, and your perhaps even more important quest to remove what's false and chains you to your problems, your ignorance, and your suffering in midwifery. The dream analysis is both. Philosophy is what's true, the midwifery addresses what's false, and dream analysis is both. Which is fascinating because those are the 3 subsections of the dialectic itself. So as we're learning in each one of those activities of each one of the aspects of the noblest game, the human game, the actual archetype of the hero's journey. And each one of them, of course, it's all the dialectic. As we say, it's turtles all the way down. Only the turtle is the dialectic. We started by recognizing the dialectic has 4 categories. Def, dem, div, and conc. Which has, within conc, of course, has synth, and anal. See, I'm being fancy by abbreviating it, because that's what the cool kids do. See? Definition, demonstration, division, and conclusion. Self in relation to subject in relation to itself, the subject in relation to others, those others in relation to other others, and from those others, a single other back to the beginning self. Only 4 categories. Isn't that neat? Well, actually, we had to expand it into 12 categories. And people who are maybe a little bit ahead of the game might recognize, oh, hang on a second. Aren't there 12 Olympian gods? Isn't that significant in Plato, in philosophy, in Platonic philosophy? Ooh. Cheeky, cheeky, cheeky.
Unbelievable sluts these days.
Ooh. And you'd be right. So, how can we get 12 categories out of just 4? Well, 4 times 3 is 12. So for each one of those 4, you can subdivide it into 3 smaller categories. For instance, when you're defining something, well, you can say things that are true about it. Beauty itself exists. There you go. And you can say what's false about it, what you would never say about beauty. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Be careful who you tell that to. Which is a catchphrase used to dismiss the existence of beauty. It's just an opinion. If you think Hitler's beautiful or you think Trump's beautiful, that's just the same as anybody else thinking blah, 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 blah. And you could also say what's true and false about it. Beauty is an experience. That's true in the sense that beauty is an aspect of being. Therefore, it can be directly experienced or remembered as an aspect of the object of knowledge. But in another sense, it isn't an experience per se because it has its own existence. It's not just an experience, it has its own selfhood eternally. There are many people who never experience beauty itself, who never get into the symposium, which is the yoga or the development that Socrates got from his female teacher, how to progress through ever deepening levels of beauty to follow the yoga of love. We have a love for beauty. We recognize beauty. We're attracted to beauty. We want to join with beauty eternally. But of course, we recognize that some people think physical beauty is all that there is. People are moved by shapes and colors only. But then we can recognize there is a beauty in a soul. Certain people, certain souls are more beautiful than others. But not everyone gets to that level. And beyond souls, there is a beauty in knowledge, or learning, or understanding. And then beyond that, there's a beauty of the single study. So that's the symposium. We're going to get into that, I guess, at a later date. But that is to say, well, that's an example of something that's both true and false. Yes, it's an experience, but it has its own selfhood. So people who don't ever get into the symposium and go down that track will never experience beauty itself. So you can say something true about a subject. Where's my other stuffy? My companion stuffy here is, anyway, let's not do another example. You get it. You can say what's true about it, what you would never say about it, or what's false. And you can say something that's both true and false. Both about how the thing itself, definition, how it functions, the division, and in the conclusion. So what? Well, isn't it neat that the purpose for being alive through time as a species who have evolved to the capacity for language and self-reflection and therefore dianoia or understanding within the single art of philodianoia, the love of understanding, we address what's true in philosophy. We apply the dialectic to what's true. We apply the dialectic to what's false in midwifery to remove our problems. And dream analysis, which you get all that juicy, tasty providence from, does both, addresses both true and false. So that's neat. So again, everything that we're learning, we're gaining more. We're learning about the thing itself while also gaining an extra benefit because we're learning about the dialectic. So it's a
win-win. It's a win-win.
Win-win. Now, another way of understanding our art, our purpose, what we're here to master, is in terms of the original 4 categories: philosophy, midwifery, dream analysis, and mythology. The application of what we're learning in our art to share it with people. Hey, it's for everyone. It's for everyone. So to use whatever level of understanding, whatever level of philodinoia you're at, in your creations, in what you create, in what you share, in your art. That's mythology. So we could say there are 4 categories. Isn't that neat? And this dialogue we're reading is one such example. Socrates or Plato, depending on which way you want to look at it, Socrates likely had this conversation, but Plato wrote it down to share the logos. So it's an example of mythology. Isn't that neat? I think it's neat. What do you think?
He better not.
He better. He better. And so, another example of mythology is those 12 Olympian gods we just mentioned. 12 Olympian gods. What's the mythology used for? To share your understanding of the dialectic. How many categories are there? Well, there are 12 now. Are these 12 aspects of the dialectic or philodinoia, are they a matter of opinion? Are they things that exist in the physical world, like this chicken, that will one day not exist? Because everything in the physical world is in a process of coming to be or decaying, so we call it the world of becoming. Or are these things that apply equally to everything, forever? In other words, do they have an eternal existence in the realm of being? The answer would be yes.
I'm cute.
That's
Like,
weird.
it's
Cute that you think
pie.
that.
So, you could represent that which exists eternally as gods, because that's their nature. So you can use gods in stories to represent that which exists eternally outside of the world of time and space in the realm of being. So, the 12 Olympian gods to represent the 12 stages of the dialectic. Isn't that neat? I think it's neat. So, keeping all that in mind, what we are gaining from one, we equally apply to another. Like rubbing 2 sticks together, to use the analogy from Plato's Republic. Rubbing 2 sticks together, you might gain an insight. That's analogy. That's what analogy is, and that's how we think. Our progression through the logos, through the dialectic, is a progression through analogy. It's how we think. And so the analogy of rubbing 2 sticks together is used to represent what happens when you rub 2 sides of an analogy together in the Republic. So in the Republic is the city-state, the Republic, but of course, as it's said several times, it's not actually a real thing. It's not a political text, which highlights how far we've gotten from reading properly in our culture, because Plato's Republic is often taught as a political work at universities. That's absurd. If you read it, he says it's not a political text. Outright. In black and white. Well, in Greek. Which is, again, why we read the Balboa translation. Often at universities, you don't read the book. You read this guy's interpretation of the Republic. And one of the ways they get you to not read the book is to overwhelm you with all these other stupid opinions. Kant's opinions, Hegel's opinions, Nietzsche's opinions. Who gives a fuck? Don't you want to know the truth? Don't you want to know the map of what's true before you judge other people to see whether or not they're right? Of course. If you're doing medicine, you first learn a healthy body. They don't just throw a bunch of sicknesses at you and say, work it out. That's crazy. Of course, one of the problems of our culture is that there is no truth. Now, we don't really believe that. Of course, we accept there's a truth of medicine. There's a truth of how to fly a plane. There's a truth of whether or not this is a duck or a chicken. But in some instances, the logos, the self-logos, that which challenges us as human beings to move out of tribal barbarianism bound by ignorance into truth, understanding, self-reflection, empathy, compassion, and art, anything like that, our culture can dismiss as there is no such thing, which is pretty insane, but that's where we are right now. So if there is no truth about whatever, the self, reality, understanding, what we're here for, spirituality, then why read the book? Why not just pick an opinion you like? Hey, a lot of politicians love Hitler's opinions, and we don't say anything about that, do we? We still allowed Elon Musk to have all the power with his capital under capitalism. Trump's a white supremacist. We still give him a lot of power. Who cares? Isn't it all just opinions? Bollocks. That's what we're facing as a society. The implications of not addressing that specific false belief. What you would call a pathologos within a culture or a milieu belief. Milieu is a fancy word for the kind of zeitgeist or the pathologos, the ignorance within a culture, allowing people to accept Trump and not immediately laugh at him and throw him in prison. The Germans to accept Hitler, the Jews to accept Benny Yahoo and all that shit. That's the milieu. Fancy word. So that's why we read the book ourselves, so we can actually read the thing for ourselves. And the reason why we're reading Socrates is because he is someone who has completed his work here, mastered the art. He says so himself. We don't just believe him. We've got good reason to start by trusting him, but we have to do the work to turn it into our own seeing and understanding and verify our understanding in direct experience or knowledge. That's the game. So it's not about belief or opinions at all. That's baby stuff. We're not babies anymore. We need to be able to verify it through reason and reflection and understanding, the dialectic specifically, to see how and why Socrates' opinions are right, and also to test them. If there is such a thing as beauty itself, we want to go to the party ourselves, check it out, have a look around. Oh, and we better be able to make sense of that profound experience from what we've been reading in Socrates. That's why we're here. That's why we're reading the Meno. So, given that, if you were reading the Republic, which we're going to do on this channel at some stage, there is so much fun stuff for us to do here. Like, do we read the Symposium next? Do we do the Republic next? Do we read one of Pierre's dialogues? Like, is it all relative? Addressing that cultural milieu belief that there is no truth, it's all opinion, right? That's a good one. I don't know. Maybe we'll take a vote in the Discord. Seeing as we're at the end of the Meno right now. So in that he says, look, it's not actually a city-state, the Republic. It's an analogy for understanding our soul, because the soul is hard to see. So let's blow it up, like put it under a magnifying glass, he said. So if you have the analogy on one side, the city-state, and you rub it up against to what your understanding of the soul, rub the two things together, you can spark insights. Isn't that neat? Well, we can do a similar thing by applying what we're learning in dream analysis or midwifery to philosophy and vice versa. part of the fun. So, with as background, recently we saw the significance of the setting, the opening setting of a dream, and the introduction of the dream. And we saw last time, Dream Analysis 5, how important it was. Equally so, we need to take that insight from our dream analysis to, well, dreams help you do both, to midwifery and to this text here. So we're going to go back to the beginning, see the introduction, see what the setting is, see if that plays a role, and see what the opening question is. What's the goal? And just like in dream analysis, we have to judge. Did they reach their goal? Was it a success or a failure? And just like in dream analysis, we might ask the question, what was the turning point? Where did it turn to become a failure? Or where was there a key moment where it turned to become a success? So that's what we're going to do today. I guess. So, thank you for joining me. It's a Saturday morning, which means I was out playing music. I play music on a Friday night, so I'm a bit tired. But who cares? Let's do it anyway. And I'm still a bit under the weather, so I'm a bit flushed. But I have Magic Blue electrolyte drink. It makes my face funny color when I put it up to the screen. But let's do our best anyway. What do you think?
I find that very entertaining.
Good. The whole point of this channel is to make this fun and entertaining as best I can. I'm doing my best to learn from other content creators who are able to present truth in a charming, fun, entertaining way. Hey, like Arun Brown, for example.
He better not.
I better.
And I find that very entertaining.
Thank you. So, let's jump in. Here we are. In the book. Am I streaming? Yes. Am I recording? Yes. Do I have any chatters in any of the things? No. But that's not uncommon for me. But we're going to do it anyway. What? Am I streaming? It says off. No. Oh, I hear people cheering. Oh, it's the marathon happening outside. I live by the Broadwater, and there is the annual running race thing happening outside. I wonder if that's significant. Is there a race happening in this book? The beginning of the Republic, they talk about a relay race. The race happening outside isn't a relay race. It's a single person race. Can that help us? Let's see. So the opening. Meno begins the book. Is that significant? What are we doing? We're looking for clues and puzzles to unlock deeper meaning, which is again analogy. Can we look at the particulars of the mythology, the story, and see if we can analogically raise it to a deeper level of meaning? That's called anagogic movement, when you use analogy in the most meaningful way. And some of my buttons aren't working. Of course. Meno begins. Oh, and question of leadership, which was again the question in the dream that we just did. So I probably won't go into detail about the specifics of the dream, but when we see something significant here, I might go, oh, just like the dream. I'm talking about the most recent dream that we reviewed. And one of the themes was who's leading. Hey, and if you're reading this, if you're watching this, you can ask that question in your life. What happened recently in your life where you thought, maybe that person shouldn't be leading. Maybe that voice shouldn't be leading my soul or my choice of action. Maybe this state of being shouldn't be leading. So for me, last night, as sometimes it happens, somebody else tried to take over leading what songs I play and where I play. And of course, for as long as I didn't recognize that from the dream, I played into that role, which meant I didn't do as well until I recognized, oh, I don't feel good about this. What's going on? Oh, I did a dream analysis. Talked about who's leading and who should lead. And then I said, oh, sorry, I can't go along with this. I'm doing something else. Take care. All the best. Who's leading here? Meno. Should he be? Meno leading. Can you tell me, O Socrates, whether virtue is teachable? So is that the question? That's Meno's question. So we can ask, did Meno answer this question? Or did we get an answer to this question? Or is virtue not teachable, but acquired by practice? Or neither by practice nor by learning? Then does it come to human beings by nature? Are we just born that way? Or some other way? So it already presumes that virtue exists, the excellence of a person exists. I wonder why. That's a good question. What's presupposed by the question? It's another thing that we do in philosophy. If we see something, we ask the question, what are the causes or conditions, or what's presupposed for this thing to happen? For example, encoding overloaded. What does that mean? What? Encoding. Am I doing too many background tasks? I am. I need to have some protein. I just got back from the gym. Some ASMR for you. Okay, so what's presupposed by this? So if we see beautiful things, we see a beautiful content creator. We see a beautiful painting, we see a beautiful puppy. What's presupposed for that to exist? Okay, what's presupposed by this question? He's asking if it's teachable, by practice, by nature, or some other way. He presupposes that it exists. So we can ask the question, why? Now, we've already read that all of the people that Meno and Anytos, both Athenians, who are of some high standing within their society, think that virtue exists because they recognize virtuous people. Statesmen, certain politicians they think are good or virtuous people. And it turns out they were wrong. Hearing that made Anytos pissed. Have you come across someone in your life who might think a certain politician is virtuous or excellent, and if you point out they're wrong, they get pissed and threaten to kill you? Or vague threats of harm? Because that's what Anytos threw at Socrates. And I think he ended up succeeding in the end, which is something we need to learn from. If a Socrates develops in our culture, hopefully, thumbs up, we can't drop the ball the way that we did back then. Because one way of understanding where we're at now, this mass ignorance and suffering and genocides happening and capitalism happening, and some of our members, I say members, chatters are from America, and they're terrified at the KKK lynchings, and there are literal concentration camps being set up in Florida, Alligator Auschwitz, they're calling it, and also in El Salvador and Guantanamo Bay, literal concentration camps for literally anyone, because there is no longer what they call due process. You don't have to be a criminal. Just a bunch of KKK guys in masks and ICE written on their shirt. Often not even that. Will just pick up children from school who they are sexually attracted to. Oh, don't say that out loud, because a lot of racism is tied to sexual fantasies as well. And they either disappear, end up murdered or raped, or shipped over to concentration camps, either in America or overseas. That's fucking happening right now, and it's terrifying. That's the implications of not addressing the causes of problems and insisting true virtue of politicians. That's what's happening. Now, of course, our first duty is to ourselves. We learn this to gain mastery and excellence of ourselves first, but that's that fourth thing, mythology. We also want to share what we have gone through. Thumbs down for Alligator Auschwitz. Holy shit. We want to share where we, our level of understanding, dianoia, and our experience. We're human beings. What did it take for us to overcome our ignorance? So that we don't have to keep playing out the dialectic, the negative dialectic, the implications of what follows if you start with a false definition of excellence. If Trump is excellent and he's a KKK guy, he's a notorious liar and racist and scam artist, what would follow? If that's if that's what people define as excellence, how would he function? Grifter, con artist, liar. What are the implications? Concentration camps. Allowing the worst human beings to just throw a mask on and murder and rape and disappear people. No oversight. What's the conclusion? Well, let's not get there. Because the conclusion is eventual Armageddon. Extinction of our species. If we can't unify ourselves under something true that can bind everyone, understanding and self and mind, the logos, as well as protect and care for diversity, both of which are necessary for evolution, our species, just like many species before us, gone. We're done. Dunzo. But if we pay attention and wake up, we can turn it around. Insist on philosophical midwifery to undo that ignorant definition, and insist on philosophy for the true definition of excellence and virtue and truth for our political leaders. And that's where we are at the Meno. Because that didn't happen in Socrates' time. And they killed him. And we lost a lot. We lost midwifery, we lost dream analysis, and we lost a lot of mythology too. With the death of Socrates in front of Plato. Plato kept the philosophy tradition alive for a while, but then again, Emperor Justinian and Paul from Christianity put an end to that. Hey, you guys doing understanding, we're going to murder you, and we're going to insist that you just blindly obey us, the most ignorant leaders. And that began a period of history called the Dark Ages. So we are climbing out of that now. to regain our tradition, regain our heritage. That's why we're reading this. And a bit serious, isn't it? I'm supposed to keep it fun, but we can have fun while we learn and turn it around. So, Meno and Anytos, two people who, again, politicians who think that there is such a thing as excellence. Were they right? Well, it turned out in the text that they were wrong. Just as, hey, Trump, just use him as an example. He's a very easy, comically, cartoonishly terrible and ignorant character. Like, I think over 30,000 lies in his first term. That's ridiculous. Like, notorious for sexual offenses, notorious for abusing his workers, not paying his workers, anyway, we could go on and on and on. But there are people who like the guy, people in America who think, yeah, that's excellence, that's virtue. And when just any simple, very, very short, simple line of reflection shows that he's not, they get pissed. And if they had the power, they would kill or beat up because they think that's virtue. That's why they like Trump. Part of it. And they did it to Socrates. And so we lost a lot. So let's not do that. So when someone like Socrates emerges from our culture, we need to make the case that they become our political leaders to turn us around. And in order to make that case, we have to say, hey, look, please be our political leader. We promise we won't kill you like Anytos and Meno, maybe. We don't know. Did Meno go in the good way, or did Meno end up like Anytos? That's one of the puzzles. To say, hey, listen, we're not going to kill you. So please, because they're not going to want to lead. Who wants to end up like that? Wouldn't you rather spend your time doing philosophy with your friends rather than taking all this extra responsibility to help the world? So we have to make a pretty fucking good case that we are not going to crucify you. So we've got a lot of work to do, which means we have to show, look, we have understood the significance of midwifery. We've understood the significance of the dialectic applied to truth, the logos. We all recognize that we are not in control. If we think we're in control, that's our ignorance, our false image of ourselves. So we are paying attention to be guided by our dreams and our dream master. Only then will they turn around and say, prove it. We got to prove it. And then they might say, all right, let's save our species from extinction and put an end to suffering, injustice, ignorance, inequality. Let's have a fun fucking time, shall we? Shall we? Can we have fun? So, that's our job. That's our role. So, he assumes that virtue is teachable. Now, he assumes that virtue exists, that there is such a thing as excellence. Now, at the end of the text, as we read, it turned out that Anytos was pissed and threatened to kill Socrates by simply pointing out that there can't be excellence because no one's teaching it. Even these people, these politicians who you think are excellent, they didn't teach their kids. So what the hell? And there are no teachers, full stop. There are teachers of horse riding. There are teachers of wrestling. No one teaching virtue. So if there are no teachers, and there are definitely no students of it, how can you say it exists? Now, we also got the Meno's reaction when Socrates says, hey, well, these people who you consider good, it didn't come from knowledge or understanding. they happened upon right opinion through luck or divine dispensation. Not only that, but the very people that you think it's virtuous to harm, to subjugate, women and foreigners, just like Trump and Hitler and all of the fucking Nazis and all of the Nazi supporters and propagandists, they hate women and they hate foreigners who look differently from their mum and dad. They're smarter than you, Meno, because they look at those people and they say, oh, the people who happened upon the right opinions, they're divine. Divine dispensation. Like a prophet or something. Oh, and the Spartans, who Meno said at the beginning, is just to, it's like one of the examples of virtue is to harm your enemies. Harm the Spartans. They recognize that it's only through divine dispensation, luck, that these people, that the good people are good. It isn't through mastery of an art, not through knowledge and understanding. And Meno's reaction to that was, well, women and foreigners are smarter than us here in me and my mum and dad and my family, and if Anitos heard that, he would be pissed. So one of the questions is that a projection? Because Meno gets pissed at the beginning, claims to be brought to silence and stung when he finds out he doesn't know what virtue is. He doesn't even know how to define anything, doesn't even know how to think, because that's the dialectic. The first category of the dialectic is definition. Education is the dialectic. The spiritual method is the dialectic. So Socrates says, "What kind of education you had, son? You haven't had a divine initiation experience. That's what the dialectic's for, my friend. Why do you think we talk about justice and beauty and these things that exist?" Are we learning the dialectic? Well, we are here, so we're doing all right. So what does he say instead? This is kind of a review, so we're putting the pieces together, using the introduction and opening as a launching pad. What does he say when he says, "Hey, define, you think you know what virtue is, so you're asking me whether it's teachable, so you're assuming it exists, and you're assuming you know it?" Yeah, of course I do. I know what it is. Had the best teachers, had the best family, very politically connected, very rich. Of course I do. I'm awesome. And good looking, apparently, too. He pointed to things he liked. Ever talked to a MAGA person? Give a definition of anything. Can't do it. They'll point to things they like, and that includes hurting people who are different than them, subjugating women, concentration camps for the foreigners, people with the tan skin. What happened? That's not a definition. It's not a principle. So when you say, well, hang on a second, Elon Musk is a foreign, applying that principle, criminals, you should torture to death criminals, and you know that Trump's a convicted criminal many times. Oh no, not him. They're just pointing to things they like, no principles, no definition that they can point to. Can't think. That's what we're dealing with here. So one of our questions is, what do we do if that's our world? It's full of Nazis and Trumpers and people boot-licking billionaires. No principles. They can't even define anything. What do we do? How do we turn it around? That's one of the questions. What did Socrates do? Because if there's going to be anyone in this book who is a demonstration of virtue, it's going to be Soc in it. So what's he doing with these people? So we can keep that in mind as we review. What does Soc do? Faced with a MAGA dude, or faced with the next Trump or the next Hitler potentially with Meno. What did he do? How did he respond to these people? Okay, so he's assuming it exists. Now we can also ask a different question. If Meno has never seen a virtuous person ever, he can't even define the fucking word. His education has been terrible, like our modern education, in that we don't learn how to do the dialectic, we don't learn how to define, we don't learn that learning is, as we saw in the text, learning is a remembering, as we see in all of these texts. The physical world, as we saw in the Phaedo, serves everything you can see as the same in the physical world, in that their functioning or purpose is the same, to remind us of things about being, to remind us, hey, your work is to remember. So in the Phaedo, Socrates, we can talk about the Phaedo. It was the last book that we read, so reference it. Hey, you know how two sticks kind of look equal, but if you look closer, they're never actually equal? But the first thing, those sticks are the same size. You've never seen sameness, ever, in the physical world. The sticks are trying to be the same as each other, which is a wild thing to think about. How can physical objects like a stick try to be the same? Because that's what they're all doing. Everything in the physical world is trying to be being. Trying to be equal, trying to be the same, trying to be beautiful, trying to be just, trying to be good. These are not, you've never seen goodness itself in the physical world, or beauty, or sameness, any of these things. So you can say, a way of talked about the significance of bringing unity to everything to save our species. One way of doing that is recognize everything you see with your physical senses are the same, in that they all yearn for being. And they all fall short by virtue of being, or by the fact that they are physical. They never get there. We, of course, have a non-physical element allowing us to share in language and self-reflection and intelligence, meaning we can actually get there. And Socrates is pointing out to us here that that's the purpose of education. To recognize all physical things are arrows pointing to analogical movement in an anagogic way, because we all, as physical as well, we also desire being. We talked about beauty. Hey, you see a beautiful person, don't you want to join with them? Don't you want to snuggle them tight, really, really close? Maybe even take your clothes off as well to get even closer. Thumbs up. But forever. So you say things like, I want to be with you until the stars fall out of the sky. And you mean it. Full connection, full unity, eternal unity. You can't have that in the physical world. No matter how much you squeeze them, or how few clothes that you wear, or how romantic your poetry is about them. Because we yearn for being. Now you can recognize that and say, well, this immense desire for eternal connection with my beloved is fantastic, because so long as we both share in the love of understanding, philodianoia, we can use that to propel our souls to that where we are unified, because we're of the same mind. That's the importance of understanding in any relationship. That's how you can come together. That's how you can reach your goal together, through the love of understanding and true eternal unity in shared participation in being. Isn't that neat? Now, if that's what it means to be a true friend and lover, is that what Socrates is doing? Because we did see him say, after the first, we don't have to see it. Here we go, here, right here. After Socrates points out that Meno's education has been crap, and gives an example of the dialectic. Now, he gave a few that went over Meno's head. The dialectic that he used that actually stuck, and this is fascinating, because there are certain people who say, hey, here's a way of understanding the ignorant. They're motivated by shapes and colors. The dialectic that Meno was able to follow was a definition of shape. Shape is the one of the truly existing beings. So shape is an eternal idea, has its own existence eternally, necessarily for shapes to exist everywhere in the universe. And it's defined by the eternal existing, one of the truly existing beings that always happens to follow color. Literal shape and color. Like a Nazi or a MAGA or a conservative or a right-winger. Shapes and colors. Isn't that interesting? And Meno's response was, well, what if I pretend to be ignorant? What if I do a Jordy Peterson or a Benny Shapiro or any of those fascist Nazi people and say, well, what do you mean by color, and what do you mean by shape, and what do you mean by words, and that kind of, they all do it. They have to abuse language and lie that they don't know the meaning of certain words. Meno literally said it. Isn't that fascinating? It's like Socrates is directly talking to us now. Almost as if he could perceive us, humanity, his species, outside of time and space. Almost as though he could perceive that which is outside of time and space, or being. If that's the case, you better know what knowledge is, because that's knowledge. That's the knowable experience. That's the thing we're here to remember. That's being as well. And it's beautiful to know everything all at once, outside of time. That kind of thing. What would it be like to see as Socrates does? That's a question we have. Wouldn't it be neat? Hey, if we're developing an art, and as we saw, virtue has to benefit, good things do good things and make other people good. So by the way, if these politicians aren't making their kids good, and they raise their kids, how can you say that they've actually got virtue? They're actually the best or the most good people. How can what they've raised, given birth to and raised, not be good? One of the dialectics we went through. So if we want virtue to be good, we need to have an art that benefits our subjects. So we have to look at analogy to make sense of that, because this idea of virtue is our puzzle. We don't see it yet. We don't know it yet. That's why we're reading. So we have to use analogy. So we can do that right now. What's an example of an art that we can see in the physical world that we can use analogically to jump to a higher thing? Well, read about medicine. If you're a doctor, do you have to give a prescription of the ailment that your patient has? And do you have to see beyond the moment to their future? How is the illness going to progress? So you can prescribe medicine? Do you have to look into the future? For example, if your patient is an alcoholic, you don't prescribe certain medicine because you can look into the future and go, well, even though they're recovering, I can see that probably, from my assessment of my patient, they're probably going to relapse. And they're going to get on the terps, get on the drink. In which case, I'm not going to prescribe this medicine, which doesn't go well with alcohol. Also, they have to do follow-up appointments in the future. So you have to see the whole of the person to do medicine. We're talking about the soul. And as we saw in the text, at the end, Socrates says, this isn't just for you, it's for politics as well. It's for society as well. If that's the case, and then Socrates, if he's going to benefit us, because he's got virtue, he must benefit our souls, but the soul of his whole species, if he's a doctor for humanity, which would be part of the outer virtue, then he's likely going to have to see all of humanity outside or beyond time, which means a couple of things. Which means he has to have a perception of being, which is, of course, education, which is the dialectic we had on learning. All things is to remember that which is eternal. But he also has to have an understanding. It's no use just having a glimpse of eternity. Hey, you've been to an EDM concert, you'll have people who're having those experiences on the dance floor. Are they masters of the art of excellence of humanity? Nope. So it's not just having the experience, but getting there through the dialectic, which we saw Socrates point out, that's what education should be. And also to make sense of that experience and to use that understanding that got you there, to not just make sense of the experience, but use it as a map and use the understanding of the experience as the ideal, just as the doctor can see the ideal of the healthy body, not by showing them some supermodel or some Olympic athlete. Here's an Olympic athlete, the ideal of the human body. Off you go, do medicine. No, wait, no. If that was the case, then every Olympic athlete would be a doctor. You have to get there through understanding. And that's an insight we got from our midwifery book as well. We talked about our job, our most important job, is to free ourselves from the ignorance that Meno has, that we get because we're human beings raised in a family. It's just part of the game. To discover and remove our pathologos. And it can be easier to see it in other people, which can bring a lot of people into this game. A lot of good people are doing their best to address injustices in the world because they're more intelligent. And maybe they've done work in previous lifetimes. However, they got to be more intelligent and caring and thoughtful and reflective. That's often a lead into this game. But they still have one too. We all do. That's the point. And in that midwifery book, we read the passage where it said, hey, if somebody said, I'll give you a pill that could remove your pathologos, we wouldn't take it. Thanks, but no thanks. There is some purpose and reason for us to go through understanding the dialectic to get there, to solve that puzzle, to free ourselves from our problems in that way. Equally so, again, for dream analysis, if I could tell you the meaning of your dreams, like an Oprah dream interpretation book, we'd say, no, fuck off with that book. Even if you're right. And they're not right, but even if they were, we'd say, no. There is something significant about going through the process of dream analysis and learning to go through it ourselves. We can share it with others. We see it's like climbing a mountain. as opposed to being some billionaire taking a helicopter to the top. So, back to the idea of art. If excellence requires being able to benefit, then, and if Socrates can recognize the flaws in Meno's education, he's not able to think with the dialectic. He's not able to define, which is part of the dialectic. He didn't use the dialectic to initiate that experience of eternity or being. And he's definitely not therefore being able to use both together as the ideal and the understanding to benefit anyone, because he thinks it's virtuous to subjugate women, to have slaves, to hurt people who are not in your clan. Pathologos shit. Nazi shit. Trump shit. So Socrates can see all that straight away. If he has the art, it must be obvious. Just like if you're a master of, I don't know, football or musician, hey, you're a master of some video game that you're playing, and some noob comes in and picks the wrong character and plays it in the wrong way and picks the wrong items, you can see it straight away. And you type in, what a noob. Has to be obvious if it's virtue. So can we look for that in Socrates? And in looking for it, can we set that as a standard for excellence ourselves? So that we can try our best to match virtue or match Socrates. And in doing so, we will surface the blocks to doing that, like Meno's block. Was he really stung? Did he really think he didn't know? Did he really get better than Anytos, or was he projecting onto Anytos? And can we do better than Anytos? Because hey, this angry outburst from Anytos at the end might not have happened if he never talked to Socrates. In other words, shooting for excellence has to be a standard for all of us. We can't have a loser mentality for losers where we just give up or be comfortable, because then you pick up the crabs in the crate. How do you become better if you can't become better? You make everyone else around you worse. That's the crabs in the crate thing. Or in Australia, we call it tall poppy syndrome. Instead of growing yourself, you cut down all the other poppies that try and stick up above the herd. We don't want to be that. That's fucked. That's terrible. That's not beneficial, because excellence and goodness and benefit has to benefit people, not cut them down, not be crabs in the crate, not have concentration camps, not have wealth inequality, not pass these, like the bills that Trump's passing right now that impoverishes people further, not passing the bills being passed in Australia right now, which gives more of our resources and wealth to billionaires overseas while making us starve, have to give all of our money to the landlords now. The rent just doubled in the last year, which is fucked. That doesn't help. That's Meno shit. That's pathologos ignorance shit. It's not virtue. So we have to surface that aspect of ourselves. Because a lot of these politicians and businessmen, they don't even know they have a problem because they're getting rewarded by the system. Maximize profits for the shareholders and we'll give you a bonus. Deny healthcare for 1 million people so they die. Kill 1 million people so the numbers on the computer goes up for the quarter. Yes, numbers go up. Good. Good numbers. Good numbers. You'll get a second boat or a third car. You get to eat steak for lunch. Isn't that tragic? Isn't that tragically ignorant? So we have to recognize the standard for excellence is benefiting everyone. And that includes in the present and future. So if it's obvious to Socrates that Meno hasn't learned that understanding, hasn't had the experience of the ideal, and therefore his idea of what's good and just is pathologos-based, ignorance-based, it would indicate that Socrates might have the art himself. The same way, if you're an expert in the game, you can recognize a noob, or if you're a doctor, you can recognize somebody as having an illness. So, as we go through the beginning, we're going to ask, how quickly does Socrates diagnose his patient? And if that's the case, and he's able to diagnose, we can hypothesize, which is, again, we don't know, but we can carry it as a question and a likely hypothesis and test it. We can develop theories and opinions, ideally based on understanding, which is what we're doing now. But again, we don't know it yet. We carry it as an if hypothesis and see if it pans out. We can carry a bunch. We carry them in our inventory. So, and all of this is just using what we've seen in the text to bring together or craft together or sew together from the text an idea of what virtue has to entail. It has to entail doing good. It has to entail this recognition. It has to entail an ideal and understanding. It has to entail being able to define things. It has to entail a spiritual experience. It has to entail that knowledge. As we saw, virtue has to be coordinated with nous, or knowing, which is outside of time. And we can put all that together and say, if that's the case, if Socrates does have virtue, and understanding, and the ideal, and therefore he must be benefiting through time, could Socrates be benefiting us? Could this be as we see in dream analysis, we look for the turning point in the drama. Where did it turn? Where could it have turned around? From a failure to a success. Turning point in the drama. And again, we're doing a philosophy, midwifery, dream analysis, and mythology in your creations. The turning point's going to be key in your stories. And hopefully, your stories will last eternally. To quote Socrates in one of the other dialogues, he says, you can give birth if you do this, if you master this, if you have fun in this game. Because it is fun. It's the most fun. Really it is. Even if we get serious about things, if we get serious about the implications if you don't do it, the injustices we see in time currently, even though that's more the stakes of the game. Hey, Luke Skywalker, the Empire, Darth Vader's gonna blow up your planet or whatever. That's the stakes. But Star Wars movies are fun. But they wouldn't have that fun unless he had the stakes. Harry Potter had fun learning stuff at Hogwarts. But he needed the stakes. So, the serious stuff is the stakes. But it's not the game. We don't get bogged down in that. We can do our best to help vanquish Voldemort, or put an end to the Darth Vader Empire, or whatever the real metaphor of that is, whatever that analogically refers to. But our hero's journey, what we do, mastering the Force, mastering magic, pathologos removium is what we say. Yeah, that's pretty good. What do you think, Stuffy? This is a Stuffy from Harry Potter. The Phoenix Stuffy. So yeah, the serious stuff of the stakes if we don't do it, but the game is fun, and the people that we meet along the way is fun, and the relationships are the best sorts of relationships, built on understanding, true love and friendship. That might even be relationships that go beyond this lifetime. And that's what we're reading here. So if that's the case, and this is the turning point in history, if we have Putin doing his thing in Russia, we have the North Korean dude doing his thing in North Korea, we have Trump doing his thing in America, we have the Australia and England towing the line, licking the boots of these Nazi fascists. And they all have nuclear weapons. But we have the internet. We have the Balboa translation of Socrates. We have the philosophical midwifery book. And we have what we are putting together, the dream analysis book. Think about all of the wonderful people who have emerged. As we said before, they're not in suits. They don't have big bank balances. They don't even have big muscles. I just came back from the gym, so. But they're wonderful people. They're sharing truth. They're able to deal with the counterattacks in a fun way. They're helping people turn around and
Imagine people changing their positions and improving for the better.
improving for the better. That we only see them because of this internet, because of this time that we're in. Could this be our turning point? Could this be what Socrates is looking at to diagnose as part of the art inherent in virtue? And we can ask the similar questions of Pierre Grimes, of course. Should I talk more about that one? I don't know. I want to. Should I say or should I not say? Maybe not for now. Maybe we'll leave that Pierre Grimes puzzle for I'm going to put that aside for now. Only because I heard somewhere that if you talk about this wonderful thing that might be coming on the horizon before actually doing it, it might take some of the energy out of the actual activity itself. So maybe wait till we're doing it. All right, I'm going to go with that. I'm going to trust the Oracle. So, if that's so, these are hypotheses that we can carry about Socrates. Is he looking, because he is saying Meno can only think in terms of shapes and colors. That's the literal meme or catchphrase we use today for Nazis and fascists and conservatives and stuff. People who say, oh, it's just common sense. I know what virtue is, it's just common sense. It's their catchphrase. They use that. The shapes and colors people. And literally, that's the only dialectic that Meno was able to follow. page 8. This is the end of it. Therefore, the definition of shape is one of the beings that always happens to follow color. So that supports our hypothesis we're carrying. Isn't that neat? What do you say?
I find that very entertaining.
I'm glad, because it's fun. I have 3 drinks on the go. I've got my protein drink. I've got my coffee to stay awake after a night of playing music. And I got my electrolyte drink because I'm still a little bit under the weather. And I have the juicy, delicious nectar of these wonderful questions that we are discovering in the text. 4 drinks. All right. So, and what happened after he said, hey, here's an example of a dialectic, shapes and colors. Meno turned around and said, well, what if I played Jordan Peterson's game? What if I played the Trump game, where I pretended to be ignorant about things just to not face my own ignorance? One of the Nazi propagandists that are paid by these billionaires at the moment is a dude named Jordan Peterson. Same shtick, anti-woman, appealing to the largest demographic, white young Americans, and saying, hey, the reason why you are not happy is because of the browns, shapes and colors. Oh, and the people with the boobs, that's the shape. And the foreigners with the color. Right? Because science, lobsters and shit. But hilariously recently, he went on one of those right-wing media YouTube propaganda things. Yeah, to debate 20 atheists. And he played this game. He pretended to be ignorant about basic definitions that we all fucking know he knows. Retreated to a semantic fog, they call it. He exposed himself as the liar, grifter, con artist he is. One more step. What's he using his lying grift for? Nazi propaganda. He's also a white supremacist. He's also paid by capitalist billionaires who are murdering people upon the millions so that their numbers go up on the computer. Just like Meno. So what? So if this is our age, if the only people propping up these terrible, murderous fascists and fucking Nazis, women-hating, racists, who prey on the ignorance of the population to steal all our money. It's not their money. Money is for everyone because we all need it to live, just like a common river that runs through a village. And some of these terrible, terrible people have set up dams to siphon away our nutrients, money. We all need it to eat and drink stuff and have a house. They're setting up dams in our money to create these stagnant cesspools for themselves. And they're paying people like Meno to play this game. You ever read a transcript of a Donald Trump talk, even though he's a president of America? It makes no fucking sense. He never says anything. He pretends to be ignorant about basic words. It's literally synthesized in its most pure form right here. Because even when the most basic example of how to think, how to reason, the dialectic, the art we're all here to learn, if we don't learn it, if we do learn it, double thumbs up. Where's my double thumbs up thing? There we go. Hooray. That's where we are, the turning point of our history. To learn the art of the dialectic, he gives the most basic example. Shapes and colors, just like what we're saying now. And our turning point in our species. Why? Because we can play out the implications of our ignorance, not just killing Socrates like they did, but killing everyone. We have nukes. What does he say? Well, this example of the dialectic, even though you're using shapes and colors, Socrates, you're simple-minded. Yeah, you're simple. You're dumb. Socrates is simple-minded? Are you kidding me?
Whore much?
Whore much, Meno? Socrates says, what do you mean simple-minded? Well, because shape is in some way according to your logos. See? What does he say? Not the logos. The self-logos. The intelligible, rational order unfolding from the one self that we all are through reality, the same logos that we are learning, that we can all unify in, because it's just reason itself. It's just analogy itself. It's the dialectic itself. No, that's your opinion. What do Nazis and MAGAs and politicians say? Well, that's just your opinion. That's just your truth. Every now and again I get someone in chat who does the same thing. What do you mean there's only one spiritual method? You're saying your way is the only way? My way? You mean the self-logos? You think it's mine? You think I patented it like a McDonald's thing? You have to buy a franchise from me? You think I'm getting any money from this? Excuse me. Be right back. It's my cough button. Same thing, according to your logos. My logos, what do they say? Hey, Trump broke the law. Well, you would say that. You're a libtard. No. It's truth. That's our age, isn't it? The post-truth era, some people call it. The MAGA era, where anything is anything. Oh, by the way, except when it comes to their power and wealth and who they want to have sex with through manipulation and money. Oh, in which case, no, you can't take their money. It's their money. Eventually it will trickle down to you. Let me build a dam in the money flow, the river we all need to drink from. But you can't touch that. You can't tax us. It's mine. No, it's just your opinion, right? Isn't it just your opinion that it's your money? See? No principles. They're lying. Meno is lying. Is Socrates looking at the turning point of history and relating to us to benefit us because that's what it means to be good? Is that virtue? Again, we're carrying that as a theory, not based on our opinions, only based on the text. Not my logos or my opinions, only using things we're getting from the text. That's why we read it for ourselves. That's why it's absurd to teach philosophy where you don't fucking read the books. They taught the Republic as a political text, and we didn't even read the book. We read some guy's interpretation of it. Insanity. It's not insanity if you understand it. That's religion. Our educational system isn't the Greek, it's the Romans who killed the Greek. The professor professes the faith at his lectern in front of all the students who sit quietly like a fucking church. You don't read for yourself. You don't ask questions. It's the Roman religious tradition, the pathologos tradition, the sick tradition. So we're turning around simply by learning to read. All we're doing is learning to read. That's it. Just learning how to read. That's all we're doing on this channel, learning how to read. This is reading. What are we doing? We're taking the text, following the reasoning, taking the conclusions, piecing them together. That's why you can only be doing philosophy if you're reading the Balboa translation, because it's the only time. First of all, we're reading the book for ourselves, but we're reading the Greek. Because Juan Balboa went through philosophical midwifery. Probably still going through it. He studied this for a long time with the modern day Socrates, Pierre Grimes. And we've got the Greek underneath. We can see the word logos. Look. See that thing here? That means L. See that? That's an O. See that Y looking thing? That's a G. See that O? That's another O. And see that V? It's an upside down N. Logon or logos. See? Don't have to believe anyone. Trump, your uncle, your dad, your mum, your priest, your preacher. It's beyond belief. That's what it means to grow up. Stop blindly obeying mummy and daddy. Maturity, rationality, going from barbarism, tribal barbarism, which is Meno's definition of virtue, good to your friends and harming your enemies. You know who else has that view of virtue? The fucking mafia. Trump. Hitler. That's barbarism. Hey, welcome sus. Welcome, welcome. Dancing kitty. Dancing, dancing, dancing. Hope you're well. Hope you have a question about the self. Do you have a question about the self? We're reading it for ourselves. We're learning how to read. That's all we're doing. Learning how to read. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that neat? What do you say?
He better not.
I better.
But this is probably the stupidest, craziest example of this little kid style lying I think I've seen on this channel thus far.
It's a bit harsh, Arun. No question about the self. Hey, say, sus. Do you have a self? Self. Do you have a self? You don't have a self? What the heck does that mean? Your sense of... Oh, by the way, when you say your sense of identity, what's the your? What's the my? That has a sense of identity? What's the ego? By the way, I guess the ego? Who's guessing it's the ego? What's the I that's guessing that you have an ego? squishing my stiffy. Squishing my stiffy. Don't want to do that.
If you don't understand this, you're either being...
I've been a bad little girl.
Okay. I meant squishing my stuffy. What's guessing that you have an ego? The ego is a powerful aspect of the perception of self meant to protect ourselves. What's it protecting? What's guessing? What has this ego to protect itself? Your mental state of being. What has a mental state? Self-defense mechanisms. What is it that's experiencing a state of being right now? It may also have defense mechanisms. You don't know. You don't know what's having a sense of self or a sense of being or a defense mechanism. I don't think too hard. What doesn't think too hard? I mean, you're using it in every sentence, so surely you know what it is that you are referring to. There is something that doesn't think too hard about much. What is that thing? The I? Yeah, what is that I? The me? What's the me? By the way, whatever that me is it different from this? Yeah, that self. What's that? The logo's question mark. You asking me? By the way, is that self that is curious right now? Is it different from myself? From your neighbor's self? Do you think I have a self? Probably not. How can you tell? You have self-defense. But what's defending? Defense against what? What needs to have a defense? And is it different for me than it is for you? How can you tell? It sounds like there's a lot of things that it has, so it must be pretty important it has a defense mechanism. It's wondering about the logos. It has a name when you say it's me. It thinks sometimes, and sometimes it stops itself from thinking because it's too hard. I wonder what voice that sounds like. Is that the voice of the self, or is it the voice of somebody else that says, hey, don't think too hard? A state of being? By the way, being has to be experienced, doesn't it? What's experiencing that state of being? And has an inner voice? Following the path of the logos? What's that? Yeah, well, self question mark, that's sneaky. I'm asking you. Self question mark is what I'm asking you. Don't steal my questions and ask me. Sneaky sus. Yeah, what is that? What has that state? What is that self that has different states? Struggles with thinking, sometimes has defense mechanisms, has an image sometimes or an ego. Can you call a friend? What would you ask the friend? He's hiding. No. He's hidden. She's hidden. He doesn't want it. Okay, you can call a friend. Go ahead. Ask the stuffy. You can ask the stuffy. What would you ask? Will you tell Sus? Okay. Okay, she's listening. What's the question? What are you going to ask her? She's on the line. Get in front of the microphone. She's waiting for the question. Okay, you're going to get a call from Sus. It's a phone a friend. Sus is going to ask you a question. Sus can only ask one question, and it has to be within a minute, and then you have to give the best answer to help Sus with the question. Sus asks, what's the answer to the experience of self and ego and awareness? What unites all these perceptions at once? What unites all the perceptions at once? Go ahead. Ask. Answer. She's freaking out. She doesn't know what to say. Come on. Quick. Times. This is a phone a friend. You got to answer. The question is, can't hear her. Question is, what unites perceptions all at once? Oh, she says, that which unites your physical perceptions is something we call mind. Does that help? Oh, she's asking me, what has mind? Hang on. What has mind? So yeah, she's asking, what has that state of mind? What's experiencing that unity of perception? I mean, mind's unifying it, but she is very pretty. So Stuffy is asking, what's experiencing that unity of perceptions? So she's calling you as her phone a friend. What are you going to tell her? Very wise and pretty, Stuffy. She wants to know what experiences that unity of perception. Oh, she has a follow-up question. Is whatever experiences your unity of perception different from whatever experiences her unity of perception? She wants to know if it's a different color or a different shape. Because how else will you know if yourself is different from herself? The mind allows perceptions and us to create a path of the logos. Oh, very, very clever. It allows the ego to also create a trajectory we have for our logos due to narratives and the way we were told and shaped as children. Sas is very familiar with midwifery and the path of logos. So is she. She's been listening too. Yeah, but she's saying in philosophical midwifery, we go to the work to discovering that image of self so we can remove it because we recognize it isn't actually the self, but as you say, a narrative. Oh, a narrative to take the blame for an injustice done by our parents until we really recognize what they were actually doing. But she says, don't say it too loudly because if you tell people that, they get mad, like Anitos and Meno. So she wants to know if you actually succeed in that very, very important quest to remove the ego or the image of the self, what's left? What's the self that you are left with? That's a good question. Very good questions. What are you left with after philosophical midwifery? I'm not sure. I'm trying, but it's a lot of talking to myself and asking origins of things. That's very good. We like that. We like finding the origin of our Pasologos, the origin of everything. Hey, if you have a house, to know the purpose of a house, you need to go back to the origin. Why did you build a house? In other words, what's the first cause? Could it be the final cause? But I guess when we lose the false sense of self, we become masters of the self and slaves of ego. Oh, rather than slaves of ego. Yes, well said. Very, very wise chatters.
Unbelievable sluts these days.
Terrible. Can you believe such a thing? From my soundboard. So, we lose a false sense of the self and become masters of the self. Makes sense. We're both nodding in agreement. Oh, she wants to know, what is it that we are mastering? And if both Stuffy and you succeed, and we are cheering for you to succeed, will you end up being masters of the same thing? Or do you become a master of yourself? And is that different from the self that baby Stuffy becomes a master of? Mastering self, overcoming obstacles with dialectics. Yep. Very clever. Very wise. Very well said. And understanding axioms and origins. Oh, yes. We're taking all that. If I get to her level, but worth a shot. Well, I mean, you seem to be in agreement all the way, but she wants to know if when you have that mastery of the dialectic and you have an understanding of axioms that can go beyond even the physical world or the origin of the physical world, and you understand how to trace back your problem to its origin, and you use your mastery of the dialectic to actually address your false teachers in a way that you couldn't when you were too little, when you're just a baby, like just this big. You say you end up with a mastery of the self. But Stuffy wants to know, do you end up with a mastery of the same self that she ends up with a mastery of? Or is it different? Is it two different arts? These are good questions. Very wise Stuffy. Very wise and pretty Stuffy. Is it the same self that you end up with the mastery of, that Stuffy ends up with the mastery of? I'm not sure. I think everyone will still be their unique expression of life, but I think most people, with what they don't agree with, can come to a consensus. And we try to coerce. Yes. Uh-oh. Look at this. T-Rexes just sparked into life. T-Rex is telling me that you might be you're an EP sus. T-Rex is telling me that you might be trying to trick me by instead of talking about what's true, whether or not it's the mastery of the same self, you're distracting me with talking about what ignorant people do instead. Try to coerce based on tribalism to feel validation, which is all true statements. But we don't want to look at the ignorant people. We want to ask sus, wise and pretty sus, about the self. Not what the dumb people might be doing if they don't have a mastery of the self. Very clever. But T-Rex can sniff a tangent from a mile away. Because with his sniffers, it's a sniffer. What do you say? So therefore, what's your question? What question have you ended up with at the end? I don't have many at the moment. I was lurking. No! You went through a very wonderful series of reflection, and then you ended up saying, I don't know. What? Because that's what we're looking for. That's what Socrates brought Meno to. Meno ended up saying, I don't know about virtue. Now, he then went on to say, but I can still give many great talks about virtue, so we're wondering whether or not he was lying. But it sounded like you were brought to a state of aporia or being stung. You don't know something. What is it that you don't know? What's your question that you ended up with at the end? 2 thumbs up. Come on. What was the question that you ended up with? T-Rex is not buying that because you said many, many wonderful things about the logos and the dialectic and freeing yourself from the ego. How do I know about virtue? Our question was about the self, wasn't it? You did very well in describing things the self has or experiences, different states of mind, states of ignorance. You talked about how it functions to discover the logos and follow it to the origin of things. How do I get to know self? That's a good question to have. Isn't it? Notice we're progressing backwards through the dialectic. You can talk about the conclusions, what follows, fate or destiny, what follows for people who have a false definition of self, as you said, coerce, ego, validation, tribalism. And we can look at the opposite, what follows if you have mastery of the self. We could say virtue and benefit, helping ourselves and our friends. So that's the conclusion, the 4 stages of the dialectic, conclusion, or the result. Division, all of the many things self has. You talked about self having, being able to function to reach the origin of things. To create a map of the logos. And you can talk about the opposite. People in ignorance. And you even can trace it back to, hey, what was your question? What unifies all of those aspects, all of those things? Perception, learning, dialectic, a state of being, or a state of mind. So the demonstration is a state of mind. The division is the mastery of the logos and dialectic and things. The conclusion is virtue or ignorance. Because by the way, as you do the dialectic, you have what's true. You could do 4 for what's true or 4 for what's false. We are really filling it in. Except we ended up here. Mastery of the self. So take that back to the start. What's the definition of the self? That functions as a state of mind. That state of mind can have the divisions of mastery of the logos, can trace things to its origins. That ends up with a mastery of self. What is that definition at the beginning? What's the definition of self? What is the self? See how we're tracing it backwards? And the answer, the definition of the self, is that which experiences the unity of perception as a state of mind. That which is here to craft and map the logos, to reach the conclusion of a mastery of itself, free from the pathologos. What is that at the beginning that does all those things? Are you left with a question? And can you phrase that question so that you can carry it? Because to carry a question is to be on a quest. You can carry it. You can pop it off at people, just like I did with you. See how much benefit I got by asking you that question that I'm carrying? I got to learn all that stuff about humanistic values, about what follows in the negative, tribalism, validation of the ego. I got to learn about overcoming obstacles with the use of the dialectic. I even got to wonder about what unites all perceptions into a state of mind. See the benefit I had from carrying that question and popping it off at you? So we still have the same question. What is that self? Now, it has to be your question. Hopefully, my questions, well, Stuffy's question and T-Rex's questions were enough to make you curious enough to have that question, to see the significance of the question. Hey, all of this stuff is wonderful, wonderful stuff, but what good is it if I don't know what's doing all that stuff? What's it all for? And is it different from Stuffy? Is it different from Jed? Is it the same self that's doing? Is it the same self logos, the same self dialectic, or different? How do I know? What is that? Very good questions. So long as you can give birth to your question. Now, what we're going through is whether or not Socrates was successful in doing that. Because when Meno was brought to see that he thought he knew what the self, not the self, but he thought he knew what self-excellence was, which is pretty similar, right? We're talking about the excellence or virtue or the ideal self. So it seems to be perhaps the same question. Maybe. And then we can go through the text to see, hey, what was their conclusion about what excellence was? Is it knowledge? Well, it has to be coordinated with knowledge. Is it understanding? Well, yeah, you need the dialectic to be able to define things and talk to people. But that's not virtue. There's something else. And can that other thing be taught? Let's find that in the text. Oh, by the way, when Meno was brought to realize that he didn't know what virtue was, all he could describe is the parts of virtue, kind of like our answers. Very good parts, by the way, the dialectic and the state of being and all that sort of wonderful things. These are all parts. But Socrates says, oh, now then. Right. You got it. The nature of self. A noble friend, you must not think that while whatever is the nature of virtue or excellence, the excellence or virtue or ideal self is as a whole, is still under investigation, that by answering in terms of the parts of virtue, that you will make the nature of self clear to anyone, or make anything else clear by speaking in the same way. We want to know the... Now, you've got it. You saw. Took you an hour. Well, took you your whole life to get to this point. And we're not sure. Maybe we can wonder how many lifetimes it took you to choose an incarnation where you run into philosophy with a certain nature of character to be actually open to this question. Because what did Meno and Anytos say to Socrates? You better be careful. If you leave the city where you're not safe, you could get killed. You didn't say that. I doubt you're a dog if you chose to come back as a philosopher. It's one of the questions we get into in the Republic, by the way. What kind of life would you choose? Because you chose to come back as a philosopher. Meno didn't answer the questions in these ways. He ran. And as we read in the opening of the midwifery book, Alan Watts ran. L. Ron Hubbard ran. Albert Ellis ran. Joseph Campbell ran from this kind of a dialogue. You didn't run. What does that say about your soul? So, if we ask what is the nature of virtue as a whole, you don't want to answer in terms of the parts, even if they were wonderful answers, wonderful parts. Thus, we must start again from the same question to explain anything which you mean of the being of excellence or virtue. Now, you saw the twist, right? We're talking about the nature of virtue, but every now and again, Socrates says, in the same breath, the nature of self. That's the twist. A twist you will only see in the Balboa translation because it's the only one that translates the word self as self. It's a clue for whatever virtue is. It might be something to do with the nature of the self. So, you gave a list of lovely parts, but we have to go back to the question, what exactly is virtue? Or our question, what exactly is the self? And Meno's response is, Socrates, even before I met you, I heard that yourself was nothing other than puzzled, and you make others puzzled, like Stuffy did with the questions that she fired back at you when you tried to use her as a phone a friend. And now, as you indeed appear to me, you're also bewitching. and drugging. Yes, very wise and clever girl. That's why I love her. And completely enchanting me. So that now I have become full of perplexity. And if I'm allowed to make a joke, you seem to me to be both in your appearance and in every other way, to be so much like the flat-headed stingray of the sea. Flathead. For self also always makes everyone numb. Flat-headed stingray. Whoever comes near it and touches it, just as you now also appear to have let's highlight that. We want to know, is he really stung? Or is he just trying to appease Socrates? And is that really virtue? You appear to me to have benumbed me in such a way, for truly both in my soul and my mouth are numb. Can't answer the question. Seems to be doing a lot of talking for someone with a numb mouth. And I do not know in what way to answer you. Ooh, seem familiar, sir? I don't know how to answer you, for even though I have indeed spoken countless times and made many speeches in front of many, I've been on Joe Rogan's podcast and I've given speeches to the Senate, all of these people who claim to know about excellence and virtue. I've spoken countless times about this, and many great speeches in front of many. And by the way, there were very good speeches too. What? Were they? I thought you said you couldn't answer the question. Joe Rogan is very much a person indeed. Am I clapping? Very good. I like it. I like it. But by the way, I still think they were very good speeches about virtue. And they indeed appear to, as they still do appear to myself, to be very good speeches. But now I cannot in any way at all say what it is. Does he still think he knows? Has he removed his ignorance? He still says, I still think they were great speeches. But now I just can't answer you. Why can't he answer? Because he thinks he doesn't know and he's genuinely puzzled? Or is he blaming Socrates, the flat-headed stingray, the witch, drugging him, enchanting him? Very sneaky Socrates with his enchanting, bewitching words and drugging him with his questions. But now I cannot in any way say what it is. So you know what? You appear to me to be well advised. Don't you fucking step out of this city, my son. Don't travel abroad, away from your hometown where you're safe, where they know you. If you did such things as a stranger in another city, you would be quickly driven away as a sorcerer. He's doing the blamerino gamerino. So the question is, was he really brought to that state of puzzlement? Did he give birth to a question? Not just a question, but the accompanying state of mind that we call being stung or aporia. Aporia is, where is the word aporia? Aporia. Here we go. Aporia. Aporia. A-P-O-R-E-I-S. You made me question myself. Witchcraft, yes. But notice, difference, right? You felt the struggle. We had some fun with it, right? But it wasn't easy to follow these questions, was it? Was it a kind of a welcome break when you had to go and answer the door? Do you recognize certain blocks that came up? Yes, lurking. Yes. Oh, I'm just lurking. I'm no philosopher. Hey, don't ask. I'm just lurking. Hey. Other blocks that came up. I don't know anything. I don't think too much. Is that true? Would you be here if you didn't think too much? So you experienced in real time as a human being what it takes to go through this line of questioning. It wasn't easy. And you know that. I could tell you that it's not easy, but it wouldn't be the same unless you've gone through it. You know what it takes. Courage, character, patience. And by the way, those tangents came up. And I bet they sounded believable. Like when you said you don't think too much, or you don't know anything, or you're just lurking. It felt like they were true, right? But if you believed them, they could have taken you away from the questions, from the reflection, from the dialectic. That's why we do midwifery with philosophy. So you can go through the chat log and find every time you undermined yourself, you undermined your mind, or you undermined your logos, or you undermined your activity. Those are the four. Self, mind, logos, activity. Did we go backwards? The conclusion, how you can act, how you can function in the world. And then we talked about the activity, mapping the dialectic, mastering the logos. We talked about the mind, the state of being. All the way to our question, the self. What the fuck is the self? And is it different from Stuffy's self? And how would you know? And your question, how do I know the self? That was what you said. So that's your flavor. That's your koan. Koan is a question that of this nature that can awaken you up to enlightenment. If you carry it. If you can allow yourself to be stung by it. So it really encapsulates your whole essence. So when you're in the shower, you think, yeah, how do I know the self? Because it seems to be the top beyond even that state of mind or being that can function through the dialectic and logos. With mastery, can have activities in the world. The 4 stages of the dialectic. The 4 stages of self. At the top is the self. That's the point. To get taken by it. To get stung. So you're all out at sea. You can't speak. You can't talk. It has your soul. Your friends say, hey, come watch this basketball game. And you're thinking, yeah, I don't really want to anymore. I want to know how to know the self. Here's a lovely anime. Yeah, anime. But do you think Deku, I'm just going to use My Hero Academia. Do you think Deku knows the self? How does he know the self? What if he knew the self? Would he master his one for all art? If he knew the self? Could it be that his problems are not the self? That's being stung. That's what Meno is claiming he's at. Now we can ask, what are the difficulties that come up that prevent it? Now that's the difference between what we're doing and what Plato was doing. Plato didn't have midwifery. He couldn't include that part. But that's what we're doing better. Because every time you had a tangent, and you have it in black and white, you can scroll through the log. Write it down somewhere. That's the material you take with you to do philosophical midwifery. And you gotta. Otherwise, the question won't stick. Why? Because the pathologos is more powerful than even enlightenment. Even if you, as you did really, really well. You have character and courage, and it's rare. Meno couldn't do it. Just to be here is a rarity. Imagine how easier it would have been without the feeling like, oh, I have to lurk, or oh, I'm not good enough, oh, I think too much, or I don't know anything. How much easier would it have been? Because one of the things the pathologos does, not only can it block you, which you are able to push through, which is great, but it can undermine your conclusions. It can get you to dismiss what you've seen. Oh, that question I came to isn't really important. When somebody invites me to do some activity, that's going to be more important than keeping my question or wondering about my question or carrying my question or popping my question off. Yeah, other people know better than me. Bullshit. What's more important than that question? How do you know the self? I can't think of anything. Stuffy can't think of anything, and she's both pretty and wise. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I say or what Stuffy says. It will feel like it's true that your question is not as valuable as somebody else's. That's part of the pathologos, being a slave to others. Undermining your insight, undermining yourself, undermining your question and koan. So what? That's why we do midwifery. You don't want to lose that question. And you don't want to lose the state of mind, because that actual curiosity, that state of being where you were stung, probably only happened for a split second. And immediately after, you likely forgot it. Go back to lurking or go back to undermining yourself or whatever. That's the power of the pathologos. It has a more powerful force than even that state of curiosity and wonder with a question that might be virtue. Why is that state of curiosity and puzzlement such a big part of this text, which is supposed to be about virtue and whether or not you can learn virtue? Could you learn that state? How could you have learned that? You had to go through it. But it's very, very small. An instant and gone, like a dream, forgotten. Unless we point to it. Socrates is pointing to it. 2,000 years through time, which is part of an art. Like a coach. Hey, you did that thing right. What do you mean? When you shot that, you had your wrist in the right position. I didn't even notice. I know, that's why I'm your coach. Because you don't know. You're learning. But I can recognize it. So do that thing with your wrist again. You'll be the best 3-point shooter in the world, is what Socrates is saying. Oh, okay. Well, I've just been talking to you for a long time, so make sure you review this. Yes, doing fucking laundry. Super insignificant compared to this. Reflection on your participation in the exact same activity Socrates went through with Meno. That's the pathologos. You're in it. You're in it now. Right now. How you feel right now, that's the pathologos. That's the state of mind that you are here to discover and understand and trace back to its origins. You're in it now. Distracts you from this. It distracts you from the questions. It gets you to think laundry is more important than this, the most important thing you can do. Literal self-virtue. You're in it. Take notes. No, don't apologize. That's the game. The game is to surface this state of mind that you have surfaced. You're winning.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win. Write it down. Take, like when you remember a dream. Until this you've come across this channel, you didn't know the significance of your dreams, but now you're recording them hopefully and you're writing them down. But it's hard to remember. You are at the beginning of your philosophical midwifery journey. Write it down. What's it feel like? Get a notebook out. Your pathologos will say, don't write it down. Fuck that. Listen to Socrates. Socrates is saying, write it down, type it up, find somewhere right now and fucking do it. Forget everything else. Everything else that comes up other than you writing down your state of mind, the thoughts that are coming up, the feelings, use analogies to talk about it. Anything else, I am telling you, as someone who's been in this game for a very long time, it's the pathologos. Don't follow it. Right now, this moment, get a pen or anything or a pencil or your laptop or whatever you're on right now. Open a notepad and start typing. Do it. If you don't, and it's your choice, I'm just the coach. You have to decide to do it. I'm telling you, do it. You can reject me. If you do, that's the pathologos. That's how we have been reading the pathologos functions. To undermine, I know better than Jed. I know better than Pierre Grimes and Socrates. I can write it down later. Bollocks, if you were on my basketball team, you'd be off the team straight away. Anyone would. If the coach says, show up at training at 4 o'clock and you don't show up at 4 o'clock, you're off the team. The pathologos function specifically to think that you know better than Socrates, who's saying, write it down. Then Pierre Grimes, that's your block. Include everything. Include the laundry. Include everything else. I want to watch a movie on YouTube. Write that down. How does it feel? How does it feel to be told this? Yeah. Why? Because philosophy is great. And it's where we're headed. But the most important thing, more important than even this, is philosophical midwifery. That's what keeps you chained to your ignorance, to your repeating cycles of failures that will prevent you from reaching your most meaningful goals, and that includes this. But that's the game. You've just won if you write it down. Your pathologos will say, don't write it down. Wait till I'm ready. Wait till I have fancy pens. I can put it off. That's how it works. And you will believe it. It will sound believable. It would be a pretty shit block if you didn't believe it. It would be a terrible block. And we have been reading in the book that it's not only a fantastic block, it is the strongest force in the entire universe. That's the stakes. That's why we're still fighting Nazis. That's why there are the concentration camps in El Salvador and Guantanamo Bay and in Florida right fucking now. It is the most powerful force. Why are we still doing it? That's how powerful it is. The reason we go through this is so that you get into that state. And hopefully you have someone like Pierre or Socrates around that can say, write it down. It's the gold. It's what you're here to surface. And it will be believable. That's another reason why we read these books, is because we're learning about the logos. And virtue is following the logos when it feels like it's wrong. When it feels like distractions, tangents, laundry, answering the front door. Fuck them. They'll come back tomorrow. Watching a movie. You'll watch the movie another day. It will feel like they are more important. That's why it's the pathologos. The question, why do we do this to fellow human beings? You are in it. The answer to that question, you are experiencing state right now. Everything that's preventing you from writing down all of the notes about your state of mind, how you're feeling, your thoughts, your tangents, everything that came up in the conversation to undermine yourself, I don't think very well, or whatever it was, everything that you are experiencing right now is the answer to that question. Dogs, let them bark. Let them bark. You think fulfilling your purpose that you've been born here is less important than playing with your dogs? That's the answer. You are in it. Part of being doing philosophy, part of being human, is you don't actually just read about it. We've been reading about it for weeks, for months. But feeling it. How difficult was it in the conversation? Number one. Number two, after the conversation, how engaging was the tangent? You fell for it multiple times. That's part of it too. That's how difficult it is. That's why I'm giving you so much time. That's why I'm emphasizing it. That's why I'm pointing to the implications of others who don't do it. Meno didn't do it. Meno's lying, maybe lying about being stung. He still thinks he can talk about virtue. He still thinks he should lead the conversation. He's talking to Socrates. He began by saying, I want to lead the conversation. What is virtue? He doesn't say what is virtue. Can it be taught? Can you tell me whether virtue is teachable? Socrates said, hang on a second. First, you got to know what in the world is self-excellence before you ask whether or not it be taught. Time and time again, he thinks he knows better. That's courage. Courage is required to follow the logos, to follow the coach, to follow the words, to follow Socrates and Pierre Grimes, to apply what we're reading. Not when it's easy. That doesn't require virtue. That doesn't require courage. One of the aspects of virtue is courage. You need courage when it feels like it's the stupidest thing to do. It's the silliest thing to do. When it feels like you know better. When that voice saying, I'm not good enough, or I can't think, or I need better pens. When that voice is loud and believable, that's when you get to practice virtue. Courage. And it will come up a lot, which is fantastic because it gives you more and more human experiences to bind it to your soul. So that you follow the logos and always look for these tangents that undermine yourself, your mind, your conclusions, your understanding, following the questions. You'll get lots of it, which is great because you get to practice. So that when you drop dead, you have been training your entire life for that experience. So that when you face beauty, you're not distracted by the dogs. Or you think you're not good enough to face. Imagine the experience of beauty itself. Overwhelming beauty, such that if you ever saw it with your physical senses, Socrates says, it would be a tragedy. Because you would fall in love with it so deeply, it would drive you mental. So it's a great thing that you can't experience it with your senses. In that brilliant light of pure being, all of these blocks will come up. Because it's most beautiful and it's most meaningful. The very things that surface the pathologos. So in this game, you stay in it. And it's an invitation because it's fun, and I'm being stern, but it's fun. I'm being emphatic. I'm emphasizing. All of these opportunities are opportunities to practice, to train, to bake it into your soul, so that when you do drop dead, either at the end of your life or in whatever enlightenment experiences you have along the way, You take it with you. You keep your question. You don't run from it. Oh my God, what if I'm not good enough? Oh, it's too overwhelming. I can't handle this. I have not trained enough. Bullshit. If it's being presented to you, it's for a good reason. Take the notes, write them down. And then talk about those states of mind. Wonder about those states of mind. Wonder about those tangents. Wonder about why it was more important to answer the door than to stay with this. They'll come up in your midwifery. And then once you get through it, you'll be able to turn around and help someone else. And it will be tough. And you'll need patience. And you'll need humor. And you'll need grace. And you'll need to talk about all these things I'm talking to you about. You'll know all that because you've gone through it yourself. And then we can wonder, is that way that of functioning that you now have, having gone through it and seen how difficult it is, seen how much you have to sacrifice, seen how difficult it is to practice courage, to be able to use it, to see through it, to help others through those same experiences, is that virtue? Is it virtue? Let's continue to wonder about that and come back to it next time. Now, before we go, it's important to point out the counterattacks. As we have seen, this is a kind of dialogue that was challenging to Meno and Anytos, and Socrates had to go back to it many, many times. And we still don't even know whether or not Meno was actually able to stay curious, or if he was lying. And by the way, we have an understanding of midwifery that Plato didn't put in the text. So we know more about how difficult it is. And it's that understanding of midwifery that gets us to point to another significant thing, the counterattack. Now, the counterattack Meno directed at Socrates. I'm going to fucking kill you. If you get out of the city, I'm going to hang you, you bastard. Because I gave these great talks. I don't like being puzzled. I don't like knowing I don't know. The same thing Trump does. These left-wingers that show that I'm ignorant, I want to murder them. He's literally doing that now. There have been a couple of Democratic senators who have been murdered, and he's literally shipping away people who speak out against Israel and the genocide. He is murdering them now. Anytos, same thing. And Anytos succeeded in killing Socrates. That's the counterattack. Now, there's two things. That state of mind of curiosity that you were in was very, very small. You might not have even recognized you were in it, but it happened for a moment. Because the pathologos is your background. It's your milieu. It's your familiar way of being. It feels more real, like a dream. As we do dream analysis, it's hard to remember dreams. But again, you keep doing it, we keep coming back to it, and we're going to keep doing dream analysis. It will become more and more. It'll expand. That state of mind of aporia, which might be virtue, that's one of the questions. You probably don't even recognize you're in it. The more you do it, the more you'll see it. So you're expanding your high state of mind, number one. Number two, the counterattack. One of the functions of the pathologos is when you do have insights, when you do participate in this kind of dialectic, that's rare. I've been to the pub up the street many times, and I've never seen anyone have this kind of a conversation. I've been to lots of pubs. Not once have I seen this conversation. It's rare. But that rarity and the significance of it, the pathologos needs to undermine to protect itself, to protect its control over you, to protect your ignorance and tribalism and your injustice. That's the counterattack. So in the next few days, until the next talk maybe, you'll find different things come up, undermining your insight. Maybe you'll even get physically sick. That happens to some people. Maybe not now, but towards the higher states of enlightenment, when you get closer and closer to that state of openness and curiosity, being bigger and all-encompassing to completely take over your world, like what Socrates says here. He says, hey, you think you're stung, and you're calling me a flat-headed stingray for stinging you. Here's some news, buddy. Where is it? Gone past it. Hey, here's some news. You want to use that metaphor and call me a stingray because you're stung and you can't talk and you're puzzled? Here's the truth. If the stingray is self-numb, self-stung, so puzzled and curious that it's by its excellence or self-benumbing or virtue, excellence of numbness, that it makes others numb, then I'm like self. Now, then I'm like it, but also like self. But on the other hand, not. For I do not make others puzzled from my being wise and knowing and having all the answers, but by being even more puzzled, even more self-puzzled, self-altos aporia, self at a loss. I don't know the answer to this question. I am all out at sea. I don't know what to say or do. My soul seems like I'm lost in the ocean. It's in that way that I'm stung. Meaning, as you stay in this game, that moment that you had for a split second becomes like Socrates. That it's all-encompassing. Now, that's when the counterattacks can become even stronger, because that's what the counterattacks, the pathologos, the false, negative, destructive belief about yourself is fighting against. So, something to look forward to. But for now, in the meantime, take notes, write it down. Keep an eye out for that state of mind. Where else does it come up? As you go and do, as you study, as you go to the supermarket, look for that same state of mind that came up in this dialogue, the negative one. But also, see if you can look at that little state of mind when you actually I don't know that question. It's just a tiny moment. Try and blow that up, but be aware of the counterattacks. Anything that comes up to distract you or undermine you or hate me, like these guys, they literally killed the dude. Oh, I hate Jed, looking at stupid questions, and I don't even think his stuff is that good. That's all the counterattack. Be aware of it. Now, I have to say that because it's my responsibility. This is the funnest game and the most important game, but also you have to be aware of the counterattacks. There are some hurdles that can be tricky. Why? Anitos, when he found out he didn't know how to answer a question, he stormed out. Socrates, you appear to me to speak badly about human beings. So I'm going to give you some advice, bucko. If you listen to me and be persuaded by me, you be careful, son. It may be easy to do harm to people in other cities, you know. In this city, it's very easy to harm people. And I think even you know this. And then he leaves. Exit Anytos. And they did kill him. That's the counterattack. That's what we have to recognize. That's why we have courage. That's why we follow the logos. Socrates says, it appears to me that Anytos is angry. Doesn't surprise me at all. Why doesn't it surprise him? Is he familiar with the counterattack? First of all, he thinks I'm accusing these men. He thinks it's a blame game. Courage, yes. Exactly, you got it. A threat to your perception of self, they'll guard it with violence and threats. Now that's the thing, you're not guarding it. The self wants you to wake up. That's why you're here. Through understanding. Through knowing what it takes. The pathologos, we don't have the pathologos, it has us. That's why we're NPCs. That's why people just live out the same script, like a zombie. This kind of reflection on yourself to the point where you realize you don't know what it is and you don't know how to know the self, that's the self-awakening. Everything else is the pathologos counterattack to that. Socrates says, hey, Meno, Anytos just threatened me, said it'd be easy to kill me in the city. And he does. Socrates is murdered in this city. It appears that Anytos is angry. Doesn't surprise me. Why? Why doesn't it surprise him? Well, first of all, he thinks I'm playing the blame game. I'm accusing these men. And secondly, he thinks that he's one of these men I'm accusing. Did Socrates accuse him? He did his best to help him through questions and reasoning the same way we are doing. Yeah, spoiler alert. Well done. He thinks I'm accusing him. If he ever recognizes, remembers, recognizes, wakes up to that which speaking badly is the kaka logos, the pathologos, if he wakes up to the pathologos, he will stop being angry, whereas now he doesn't recognize it. He doesn't know what we're doing, and he doesn't recognize the counterattack. Hopefully, I've given you enough, and I've given anybody else watching this in the future enough to not fall into what Anytos has done to others and yourself. Why both? Let's go to the end. The whole book concludes in this way. By the way, we have reason that the people who we think are good, they don't really know what they're talking about. If they happen to hit the mark, it's by divine dispensation. They got lucky. Whereas we will have clear knowledge of self only if, before we ask how we come to know the self, we try to discover what in the world it is. What in the world excellence is, self by itself, the dialectic. Self by self is the first category of the dialectic. Whereas now, the hour has come for me to go. But you must persuade Anytos as a friend. Just as here and now, you have been persuaded by my words. In order that self be more gentle, remember the gentle art, the friendly art, the true lovers, the dialectic, as Socrates has been doing. Just as you have been persuaded by these words, you have to persuade Anytos. Someone in the counterattack. Someone who's unfamiliar with the logos and philosophy, the dialectic. Someone unfamiliar with the pathologos blocking us and the counterattack. so that self may become more gentle. If you can persuade him, then it is beneficial. Remember, part of excellence is benefiting. It's a beneficial service that will also affect Athenians. If you, Sus, are gentle to yourself as you stay in this game, as you face the counterattacks, as you practice courage, as you try and recognize the state of mind that brought you out of the conversation, and you try to recognize that moment where you were stung, you stay in that game and you follow the logos by learning philosophical midwifery and this dialectic, you will be benefiting yourself and the world. Self-gentle, and also for all Athenians. Now, Athenians especially means us, people in this game. That's your challenge, Sus. That's the challenge to all the viewers. That's the challenge to all of us as human beings going through this process. Socrates is communicating to us through time to make us more gentle to ourselves and to our whole world. Are you up to the task? Join us. It's the best game. It's the noblest game. And Socrates is here helping us along the way. Thank you so much for our wonderful participation for our chatter today. Big round of applause.
I'm too pure.
Too pure.
The more holes, the better.
The more holes, the better. Whatever that means. Thank you for joining me. And go out, go through this process yourself, and look for someone like Anytos that you can also help as you go through it yourself. Because Meno isn't at the end. Meno's just starting. But still, any step along the way, you have the opportunity to share someone else who hasn't. The stuff is with the best part. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, rewatch the stream. Fantastic. Meno is being encouraged to learn this art and midwifery, as well as help friends along the way. Even if Meno's just a little step above Anytos, that's still a step above that he can help. I know what it's like to be pissed. Meno was pissed at Socrates at the start. I don't know if he ended up stung. We're going to go back and review it again. But at least he stuck around. That's more than Anytos. And if you can share what it took for you to go through this, how difficult it was, how believable the counterattack was, and the tangents were, then you can not only help yourself, but you can help another person become a kinder, more gentle, more beneficial, more virtuous to themselves and to our entire world. What would it be like if we were all in this game? That's something to wonder about. Thank you again. Thank you again. Thank you again. Well done for Sus. One more round of applause.
What feminists want is to
No.
I'm cute. Like, it's cutie pie.
Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one.